Welcome to another episode of the Wild and Well podcast. Today I have Jayda, and I'm so excited to talk to you all about early education, how we can help our kids to get out in nature more and play and slow down childhood. But before we get into that, can you tell us one thing that you've done today to take care of you?
Ooh, I love that question. Are you asking me that, or is that a general question?
I start every interview with that because everybody has such diverse answers. So it's really
Okay.
interesting.
Okay, so ask me one more time so I can have it fresh in my brain.
So, what is something that you've done today to take care of yourself or to nourish you personally?
So I think that it's really important to slow down because I think that's the number one important way to regulate your body. So today I was asked the question if I wanted to go home from work. Usually, 99.9% of the time I say no, just for life reasons. Like obviously I need the money and I don't ever want to leave or feel like I'm abandoning my classroom. But today I said yes, and it felt so good. So I feel like that was a really good way for just me to regulate myself and take time for myself. And I went to a cafe. I treated myself to lunch. And I feel really, really good about that.
That sounds lovely. It's really nice to be intuitive with that and check in with like when you want to do that and when you don't.
Yeah, it felt really, really good.
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for those of the listeners that don't know and what it is that you do?
Absolutely. So I am a Reggio inspired play school teacher. I kind of fell into this career path. I always knew that I wanted to be an educator, but when I went into college, I went for art education. I thought I wanted to be a high school art teacher. And I started working at a local preschool, which I thought was a typical preschool, conventional, if you will. But when I started working there, I realized very quickly that it was not a typical preschool. It was very, very child-led, very nature-based. We were outside for the majority of the day. A lot of our projects were having to do with process art and loose parts and not teacher-led by any means. Um, Lots of natural light in the classrooms, lots of baskets and not colorful you know patterns and things that you would see in a typical classroom. um and so I think that when I started poking around into the philosophies of my school is when I started to find my um my kind of teaching philosophies. So I identify myself as a Reggio inspired teacher and influencer. So I started my Instagram account Reggio Roots in September, and it has grown and flourished, and I'm so incredibly grateful for the fact that I get to share my classroom and um share my teaching philosophies and just have a platform where I'm able to show teachers that there's more to teaching than conventional and traditional ways. Um and yeah, I love it. I love every minute of it, and I love being able to share my experiences, especially as a young educator too. Being able to share my experiences and, my educational philosophies because it's not something that you see every day.
No, it isn't. It's very countercultural in some ways. Can you explain a little bit more about what Reggio's approach is to education and how it does differ from what we typically see or think of as education?
Yeah, so Reggio, sorry about that. So Reggio is a child-centered approach. It takes into account the child, their needs, and it individualizes lessons, activities, and kind of is so child-focused in the sense that you I was going about that and telling it in a way that is not I don't know how to explain what I just wanted to say to you, and I apologize because I just totally messed that up. Um,
You can start
it's
again. I can cut that part out.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna have to. The Reggio Emilia approach is a child-led philosophy based on the image of the child. So we take into account every aspect of each individual child, and we make sure that our lesson plans and our curriculum and classroom environment is curated for each individual child in order for them to flourish and to grow in that specific environment. It's not a one size fits all like traditional schooling. It's kind of we cater to each and every individual child so that they are able to completely grow in that environment.
How do you do that? Are the classes a lot smaller or are there more teachers? Because some classes in conventional schools have like 30 or more kids in them, even younger grades. Like, how does that actually look in the classroom?
So we follow New York State regulations, so it's no different from any other um state where you're located. We follow those same ratios. So in my classroom, it's a 1 to 7 ratio. Um, so usually I have more than 7 children. I usually have 14 children on a day-to-day basis. Um, and so I usually have me and my co-teacher and 14 children and a pretty decently sized classroom for 14 children. But majority of our day, what's so beautiful about it is it's spent outdoors. So it really doesn't matter how big the classroom is because I'm getting to see the children in their true element and getting to see them and how they interact with other children, how they play, how they live their lives and how their mind works because I'm seeing them in their natural element, which is through play. So we spend a lot of time outside, which is really helpful to get to know them and to get to know their characteristics and how they interact and how they perceive, everything, how they perceive the world. Um, and so what I do is I take notes on them. I take notes daily on them and I make sure that I spend time with each and every child so that I can really, really get to know every single child and their needs and their wants and how they see things. That I want to see the world through their lens, and the only way I can do that is by spending time with them through the only way they know how to interact, which is through play. So that's how I do it. That's how I curate that kind of classroom, and that's how I make the classroom fit their needs is by observing them and watching them and being present with them and consciously choosing to be present with them because it's not the easiest thing to do. It's easier said than done. But consciously choosing to be present and to play and to interact with them is how I'm able to curate that classroom that they need.
And play is so important for our kids. It's really important for us as adults too. Why do you see play being so important? You said that that's how they interact, or I might be using the wrong words there, but tell us more about that.
Absolutely. I think that the way that our brains are hardwired is through, you know, uh the the way that our brains are hardwired are through like what we learn as adults. It's what we go through as life. So as adults, we're hardwired to go to work and to cook dinner and to have families. And when we're children, our brains are hardwired to play. It's all they know is to interact through play, to learn through their senses, to interact with other children through the only way that they know how, which is through touch, sight, feeling, hearing, things like that. So understanding that that's how children learn and understanding that they physically need that in order to learn and for me to do my job, for me to be an educator, I need to understand how their brains work, and that's through playing and through exploration and through um you know inviting them to explore those senses within them so that they can better learn their bodies and I can better understand their needs.
Play seems like something that, as much as it's so important, there's not enough of it in childhood anymore, is there? There's so much structure and there's so much focus on achievement and tasks and getting to the next level or grade or whatever it is. How can we help facilitate more play in our kids' lives or at school? How do we do that with all these other obstacles in the way?
Absolutely. I think that, like I said before, our brains as adults, especially, are just so hardwired to kind of focus on the future and not be present with our children. And I think that you have to really choose to consciously be mindful of the fact that your children need you and they need you to be present and they need you to be there with them in that moment. They cannot think about their future. Their prefrontal cortex is not capable of thinking about the future or thinking about the past or thinking about what they're going to do next. They're thinking about right now. So I think that we need to be conscious and mindful of the fact that it's okay to slow down, and it's something that we need to practice as adults. We need to slow down and we need to be with them. Um, I think that's a way that we can incorporate it more play into their day, because it's not something that is, that we have full access to all the time, especially with traditional schooling. It's not something that children have access to, but as educators and especially as parents, we need to find time to be mindful and conscious of the fact that we need to slow down and be present with our children.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it really is a practice doing that because it's so much easier to just be caught in that busyness and distraction and not be present. So, what are some ways that we can tangibly do that? Is it just intentionally being with our kid in whatever activity they're doing and just sitting with them and observing them? Or do you have anything else to suggest to help us practice slowing down and practice being there with our kids?
Absolutely. I think that it's something that takes time for sure. But I always try to remind myself to never interrupt their play or insert myself in their play by asking them, "Oh, what are you doing? Can I play with you?" I kind of watch from afar. I'll parallel play, or I'll set something up for them and have them come to me. It's important to be mindful of the fact that you never want to interrupt what they're doing. Could you imagine you were cooking dinner and somebody just takes over for you? And you I mean, also that sounds kind of nice, but could you imagine you're just in the middle of doing something important and somebody's like, "Nope, I got it. Oh, yeah, let me do this, let me do that." It's not something that a child wants. It's not something that anybody wants. So I think that being conscious of the fact that you never want to interrupt their play. You want to be a part of it. You want to be joined into it. And that's a really important part, is maybe setting up invitations to play. So maybe setting something up for your child so that you can play with them instead of interrupting their play. I think that's a good way for you to a good step for someone to be conscious of the fact that um be conscious of playing with their child.
And what are some ways we can set up that invitation to play? Is it that we put toys out and we sit there and we hope they come to us, or we sit near them when they are playing and see if they invite us in? Like, what are some ways that we can actually facilitate that?
So I think that it's a lot of trial and error. Again, I think it's a lot of watching your child, specific child, and how they, how their brain works and what would work best for them. I think that it's so individualized, and I never want to give a straight piece of advice, especially when it comes to play, because it's so individualized. Uh, so just maybe trial and error and seeing what works best for that child and seeing how they want to interact with that specific adult and how you want to interact with that specific child.
Yeah, that makes me think about how my husband and I play with our kids, and it's so different. Like, he's very rough and tumble, and the kids are just like attacking him. And with me, it's sometimes like that, but not always. It can look very different. So I think you're absolutely right that it's very individual. So going back to what you said initially with that observation, if we can just observe and see how our kids play and how they interact with us, that'll probably really lead us in the right direction, won't it?
Absolutely. And I think it comes down to the art of noticing and just paying attention to your child, because it can get so, hectic throughout the day, especially, you're coming home from work and your kids coming home from school, and you have to cook dinner and you have to get their outfit ready and you have to pack their lunch, and there's just so many things at the end of the day. Um, you know, that are it's hard to facilitate in general. So incorporating play into it is a really big step, and it's something that you have to, give yourself grace with because it's not something that's going to come easy. Um, but I think that it's something that is so important for your child, and it's so important to create those connections and bonds, other than blood. It's creating those really strong connections with your child, that last a lifetime. They're forming memories and they're forming connections and they're forming bonds. And it's so important to be mindful of the fact that you need to be a part of that and show them how to be a person and how to interact with people and how to, be a good human. So, you do that through play. Um, and yeah,
Yeah, they really can learn everything through play, can't they?
absolutely. It's so powerful.
So how do we as adults be more playful? Like, can we just work on being more present with our kids and that's enough as a start? Because I think there's so many adults that are not very practiced at play and it can be hard. And then you add on being busy, having things to do, being tired and overwhelmed. And then I find my playfulness just drops when all that stuff is happening. What do we do? How do we actually become more playful?
I think that's a really good question because I think that again it comes down to just being conscious of the fact that, you know, play is so important and you need to be aware of the fact that you're even aware of that in general, the fact that anybody would be aware of the fact that, they're not being as playful as they should be is a step in the right direction. I think being aware and being conscious in general of anything in that matter is a step in the right direction and a step showing that you care and that you are there and you're present. Um, so I think that, making sure that you are aware of when you're lacking, and it's important to rely on your partner. It's important to, hold yourself accountable. It's okay to, not feel like playing. Being there and being present, spending time making connections, um that's what really matters. So, you're gonna have times where you feel crappy and you don't feel like playing and you don't feel like, doing anything. Being present, um, you know, and just being acknowledging that, you are not giving 100% is okay. Um, Being there and being present and making those connections, making memories, that's really all that matters. Whether that be laying down or, just sitting there, you being there and being present is what matters the most.
That's really nice to hear because I think sometimes we can put really high expectations on ourselves as parents to always be playful or always be kind and all these things. So it's useful if we can just give ourselves grace in that and sometimes be playful and other times just be present and just be there. And then maybe that will lead to us being playful, or maybe that will be enough.
Exactly. You got it now. And also, like, another thing to acknowledge is the fact that it's not our job to entertain our children. It's not. Our children entertain themselves, which is another thing why I said before, um, what was I saying before? Because now I don't remember. It's not our job to entertain our children because children entertain themselves. What was I getting at? Give me a second because what did I tell you before? And I was like, oh man, hold on, because it'll come back to me. Okay, whatever. It really, at the end of the day, it's not our job to entertain our children because when you don't ever want to interrupt their play or interrupt what they're doing, so making sure that you are not their main source of entertainment because that kills creativity, that kills their, that part of their brain that's growing and learning as they're playing. So you never want to be their main source of entertainment. That's what I was getting at. when we were talking about interrupting play.
So what do we do? Because I know some parents who have really taken on that role of being the entertainer, and then those kids expect that. So then you're stuck in this cycle of the kids looking to the adult to facilitate play. How can, if that's happening for somebody, how can they start to step away from being that entertainer and letting kids play by themselves?
So it's a big adjustment. So a transition of any kind can be major for any child. So I think that it's definitely something you have to pay attention to. It's not something you want to cut from cold turkey, especially if you've become their main source of entertainment. Um, it's a tricky situation, and I think that maybe slowly pulling away and slowly pulling back and giving them opportunities to explore creativity and explore in general, because you never want to diminish their growth and their learning that they do through play. So I think that's slowly stepping back, making sure that you're uh consciously stepping back and paying attention to the fact that you shouldn't be their main source of entertainment, um because you never want to kill their curiosity.
Yeah, that makes sense. Slowly do it. Yeah. So your classroom is, you spend a lot of time outside there. Why
Yeah.
is nature play so important? Is that different from other types of play? Like why, what is it about nature that is so helpful for our kids?
So I think that oftentimes we forget that nature is where we should be. We're animals in our hearts, and children are wild and chaotic and full of life and full of energy, and the earth recharges them. Being indoors under fluorescent lights and, you know, between four walls is not where they should spend majority of their days. If we as adults can provide them a space where they can have creative freedom and free range and the ultimate, window of curiosity, why wouldn't we give that to them? Why wouldn't we allow them to explore the earth and nature and get charged up and re-energized and not be, closed within four walls? Anything you do inside, you can do outside, anything. So I think that if you have the opportunity to give that to children, you should take it. Because it's so important for them to, soak up the sun and be in nature and touch grass, as corny as it sounds. We're animals in our hearts, and showing them at a young age that they can be outside for long periods of time, and it doesn't need to be these short, minuscule 20-minute intervals like, oh, recess, oh, we're gonna go outside now, showing them that they can do things outside and they can be outside and that they should be, is so powerful and so empowering and encouraging, and really, really sets the tone for the rest of their life and how they perceive the world and how they should treat the world and others around them. It gives them social awareness um and gives them the opportunity to learn and grow without the confines of four walls.
Yeah, it really is transformative to be outside, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, if we as adults find joy in taking hikes and going for walks and exercising, why would we expect our children to, who are literally running on play and running at 100% all the time, to why would we expect them to stay inside for majority of their day? Why wouldn't we, give them the opportunity to spend their days outside, especially if we have, the tools to do it? Take it. Don't ever uh diminish the fact that we have, outdoor space, and the earth is so, regenerative and beautiful, and we need to show them that, because it's not something that they know on their own. It's learned behavior, and if we show them to be inside 90% of their day, that's what they're going to know. But if we show them to be outside for 90% of their day, that's also what they're going to know. So being mindful of the fact that we can really, I mean, transform the rest of their lives and show them what it means to be here and be present in nature and love their earth and their home and to take care of it is so special and so amazing the fact that we're able to do this.
Yeah. And I find it just makes things easier too when we go outside.
Oh yeah.
Everything's easier.
To put it in simple terms, also messes are much easier to clean up outside.
That's so true. Yeah. Yeah.
I just
Eating
I just made
outside. Like,
I just made an Instagram post. I'm like, any mess inside is better than no, any mess outside is better than any mess inside. I mean, you don't have to sweep. You don't have to wipe anything down. Like it literally, why wouldn't you want to be outside? Especially as a parent. Like, I mean, teachers, we're used to cleaning up. I mean, obviously parents are too, but as teachers, we're used to having to like disinfect things and, clean up their messes and stuff. But, I mean, when you could do it outside, you don't have to do half of those things. It's like it's a win-win.
yeah, everybody's mood is better. It's just, yeah, it's so
Right?
much better. But it
They
is a
nap
transition. Yeah.
better.
It can still be hard though to change up like perception of we can spend 90% of our time outside rather than inside because so many of us who are parents or teachers had upbringings where we were inside so much. So
Yeah.
we're relearning this alongside our kids learning it, aren't we?
Absolutely. I mean, it was definitely a big learning curve for me. And I noticed that a lot of my new kids that come in, because I teach 3-year-olds, a lot of my new children that come in, especially with the new year, so like it's September, so I had a whole new class, obviously. And majority of my new kids were really, really struggling with the fact that we were staying outside for long periods of time, which goes to show that being inside is a learned behavior because when I forced them out of their comfort zone and brought them outside for long periods of time and for those long stretches, they were very, uncomfortable with it and unresponsive to the fact that we are staying outside. So it's definitely a learned behavior and it's definitely something that, you have to teach children because it's not something that just comes to us. It's not something that we know. So, being mindful of that is really important.
How long does it take those kids to adjust and start just loving being outside all the time?
Usually by the end of September, they're like, "Oh, this is what we do." We start to get in our routine of, building routines is so important, especially even when you're outside. Building routines of, when we go outside, what we do to go outside, when we go inside, what we do once we come inside. They know that when we go inside, it's time to eat lunch. So oftentimes when I take a child in, to go to the bathroom for a bathroom break, my new kids will be like, "It's time to eat lunch." Because they know that routine of, they don't have any concept of time. They just know that when we go inside, we eat lunch. So if we have to take like a potty break or something, they know, like, you're tricking me. So I mean, it's definitely a big adjustment for them, especially because they're so little. But usually by the end of September, they start to realize, like, oh, we stay outside. Um, and it's so amazing. I mean, even the minute they come in, they're asking me, like, can we go outside? Is it time to go outside? Is it time to go outside? I'm like, almost.
Oh, that's so good. That must be really special to see that shift happen in
It
those
is.
kids.
It's special and magical and also, like you said, it's so amazing because I mean, it, it takes so much of the stress away as an adult, when we have to clean up messes and we're constantly cleaning up after our children and it's like a never ending cycle. So to be outside so early and for such long periods of time, that takes a lot of stress away from us as well. Because, they're out in nature, away from, those buckets of toys and, things that they're able to dump and, they're learning through, natural loose parts and you know nature pieces, so that's really special too.
Yeah, being in nature somehow makes us more creative, doesn't it? Because you don't have that dinosaur toy, but you make that stick into a dinosaur, for instance. Like
Yeah.
it just breeds that creativity.
It really, really does. It's so special.
So, if you can look at conventional school systems, what would you want to change about those? If you could like have a magic wand and just make a few adjustments, what would they be?
So that's a tricky question because although there are so many benefits to naturalistic play, like how my center does it, and these natural philosophies like Reggio and even Montessori and Waldorf and things like that, there are also many benefits of conventional schooling as well. There's so many benefits, and I think that because this naturalistic, nature-based, play-based, type of play is trending, I'd say, right now, um, I think that I never want to diminish, um, the the traditional schooling and traditional schooling in the sense that, you know, not everybody has the opportunity to go to a school with specific educational, nature-based philosophies. So I never want to take away from the fact that traditional schooling is something that people, need as in our communities. Um, if I could change something, the only thing that I would change is the teachers' perspectives. Um, and just kind of let them know that it's okay to steer away from cookie cutter traditional old ways, and that it's okay to branch out and find your own style of you know teaching and your own educational philosophy. It's okay to branch out and be creative and find who you are on the inside and express that through traditional schooling. um Being mindful of the fact that not everything needs to look the way that it always has. Get creative with it. Love yourself, give yourself patience, and allow yourself grace to mess up. Was that too loud? I'm sorry. Give yourself grace to mess up and to explore, um, and just be mindful of the fact that children need room for play, and they need room for gross motor exercise, and they need room for exploration of their mind and their body and their soul, and it's our jobs to give that to them. So explore, mess up, and have fun. And you don't need to be so cookie cutter because life is not that serious, and making connections is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that if anybody heard that, they would start to open up their perspective and think differently.
I hope
So,
so.
how can you tell us a bit about how you work with people and where we can find out more about you? You work with teachers, is that correct?
So, so I'm a preschool teacher. I work at Bloom Learning Center in Center Moriches, New York. And I also do teaching coaching. So if you're a teacher and you feel like your classroom needs some love, or if you feel like you need help with classroom management, or literally anything regarding your classroom, yourself, regarding teaching, um, and you want to, get some coaching and some guidance, or reassurance or support in any way, I do coaching calls. And we're also opening a new location in Quogue, New York. If anybody is listening and is on Long Island, we're also opening a new location, which I will be at that new location. So yeah, so I'm just a teacher right now, and I love every minute of it. I'm soaking it up. Um, and I just do coaching calls, and I love it. So if anybody would want to find me, it would be on my Instagram account, Reggio Roots, and you would just follow my link tree and go to my website.
Yeah, amazing. And I'll put those in the show notes. And for everybody listening, if you haven't seen Jada's content, it's just beautiful and so inspiring for, I imagine, for teachers. I'm not a teacher, but as a parent, it's very inspiring. And a friend of mine who's a teacher recommended your page to me. And yeah, it's just full of so many reminders about why play is important and slowing down and the beauty in nature with your kids or as a teacher with your classroom. So I highly recommend checking out her page. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about here or you wanted me to ask that I didn't?
Honestly, I've been on two podcasts before, and you actually asked me the most questions that I've ever been asked, and I was actually very impressed, I will say. I feel like I'm not a great talker, which I apologize for. I always I you know, it's one of those things I have to like work on. I'm like I always talk myself down. Um, but I do feel like that I mean that you are very, very well spoken. I don't think there's anything that we missed regarding, play and learning and nature and, the educational Reggio philosophy, and just being mindful and conscious of, parenting and teaching. I feel like you hit everything. You did really good.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here. And I think that ending on this is a really nice place to end, but just to remember for yourself, like to be aware of those beliefs that you have about yourself, because I think listeners would have a different perception of you than you have of yourself.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's definitely something that I'm working on.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and thank you for giving me this opportunity and a platform to be able to, reach other people and especially parents because I feel like majority of the time I'm reaching teachers, but I love that I am able to reach parents. That's so special.
Yeah, absolutely.